What is going on, everybody? Off the Mic Sports Network, another edition of Off the Top Rope. So I didn't get a chance to talk about what transpired on AEW Dynamite on Wednesday. Man, what a lifeless, pointless exercise in a follow-up show to a pay-per-view. World champion wasn't even on the show. Big heel turn. They didn't even follow that up. Darby Allin's still fighting with the Death Riders after being involved in an I Quit match. But one of the bigger topics of discussion and one of the big hyped up points for a lot of sickos and, a lot of people who love women's wrestling is they're finally going to have a tournament to determine the first ever women's tag team champions in AEW. This has been speculated for most of the year that something was going to happen, especially with the way that the women's division has been booked. You guys know how I feel about how the women's division, like fair or not, has been really beholden to Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné. And that leads me into my next point. This tournament is a load of crap because anybody who, foolishly, maybe even to some degree me, thought that AEW was going to potentially use this and use the women's tag team title belts that were newly made to, forward, hardworking and deserving talent who needs the elevation rather than, give it as another opportunity for the high named people. Because let me read you off the names in this tournament and read off the teams. So the teams are Queen Aminata and Jamie Hayter. Never been a team until just recently. Cool. The Sisters of Sin, which is Sky Blue and Julia Hart. Cool. They've actually have some experience together as a team. You've got Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron, who just started teaming together. I don't like what they're doing with Willow. They're keeping her away from Statlander, and she should be more. She's one of the faces of this division, just re-signed. Then you've got Mercedes Moné and Athena teaming together after Mercedes got slammed into a cake, and she's being consoled by Athena, who a lot of people thought should have beaten Mercedes in Texas for the title. She got the token win in that casino gauntlet, used the privilege that she won out of that almost immediately, lost to Toni Storm, and then Toni Storm lost the title in a nothing match a month later. I hate what they're doing with Athena, and they're putting her with Mercedes, which doesn't make any sense because Athena has her own minion in Billy Starks, who is already, whether it's kayfabe or not, complaining about how she's now on this team. Other side of the bracket, Alex Windsor, who has dropped off the face of the earth after being the flavor of the month, and Riho, who was a topic of discussion on wrestling Twitter a couple weeks ago. They go up against Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa, who both lost their championships very recently. Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford taking on Ty Mello and Anna Jay, which is the most experienced team in the entire division. Here's my problem and why I think this tournament's a fucking sham. Anybody with a fucking brain can look at this tournament and see where this is going. I would be stunned if the final isn't Mercedes Moné and Athena versus Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa. I would be stunned with the way that this has been formatted and with what has been laid out to us in front of our eyes for months, weeks. This division is basically Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné and everybody else. And it sucks because, Willow deserves better and Harley deserves better, and maybe they ultimately get their get back in facing Athena and Mercedes. Like, maybe they do. Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, they've actually been teaming together. We don't know why. And they're taking on the most experienced. Those are the two most experienced teams, and you have them facing each other. Alex Windsor and Riho, what the fuck do they have to do together? Jamie Hayter and Queen Aminata, they're fighting the Sisters of Sin because, hey, both of them have beef with Tekla. Like, this whole tournament was supposed to be about elevating other teams and elevating other women. Why the fuck are Mercedes and Toni in this tournament? What does that do for the women's division? Because that's the projected final, and maybe they go another way, because I remember when back in the early days of AEW, they had the Young Bucks lose in the first round of Private Party. Do I foresee that happening? Maybe. I'd be surprised, because with the way that they're going with this Mercedes Moné, whole angle of everything, it leads me to believe that she's probably at least going to be in the final. And if this whole thing with Athena doesn't lead to them facing each other for the TBS title, what are we doing? because, or, maybe they'll probably end up doing some sort of title for title when the Ring of Honor champion takes on the TBS champion and Mercedes gets up to 14 or 15 belts. At this point, like, with how they've booked this women's division and then seeing these teams and the way that they've put this together, and you have two of your biggest stars in this tournament when it should be about elevating other people, that doesn't send the right message. And I don't have a ton of faith in AEW to do the right thing here and elevate a team that needs to be there. Because here, like I said, really one of the biggest issues outside of the bigger stars being involved in this is, from a formatting perspective, you have your two most experienced teams, the two teams that probably could benefit the most from winning these championships in Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford and Ty Mello and Anna Jay, Ty J, is they're facing each other. One of them is going to lose in the first round. How does that make any sense whatsoever? How does that make any sense? How does it make any sense that basically a half of this field literally started teaming weeks ago? They're basically, I would say in terms of a regular team, on a regular teaming basis, I would say 3 teams in this tournament have teamed regularly. And that is Bayne and Ford, Ty and Anna Jay, and then the Sisters of Sin. Those are the only 3 teams that have really teamed on a regular basis. Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa, they were individuals. They were thrown together as a team. I'm talking about teams that have regularly competed in matches as a tag team. That's not even half of this field. That's not what this was supposed to be about. So if we're talking about elevating women's wrestling, this is a crock of shit. And this is the latest example of everybody's trying to tell me, oh, hey, they're gonna put together a women's pay-per-view. Motherfucker, everybody tries to get mad at WWE for how they present their women. WWE presents their women way better than this, and they don't even have a great women's tag team division. I was happy when, friggin' Charlotte and Alexa won the women's tag team titles. That has gone to shit. Women tag, for whatever reason, booking a women's tag team division is not sustainable. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And AEW's insistence on doing this was solely, my understanding of it was solely because they wanted to, elevate other women who had been pushed down because Mercedes and Toni had run roughshod over this division. And yet they're still in this tournament. Why? Because we don't have enough teams, apparently. But you told me for months that we were going to have enough women to compile and put together a tournament like this. And yet here we are, and we're clearly setting the stage for Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa to take on Mercedes Moné and Athena. And I hate it for Athena because Athena shouldn't be getting dragged into this mess anyway, because she's basically been used as a side piece, which is stupid because she's just as good as just about anybody in this division. It's a crock of shit. It's a fucking sham. This is a fucking con job by AEW to get you to believe that they give a shit about women's wrestling. And even if they do go another way, what's the point of it? What are you going to do at the end of it if, the tag team champions are somebody else? We know that the way that this company operates is they cater to their stars. And that's the issue here is, what sense is there if you're going to really care about women's wrestling, if you're going to put certain people into a higher profile spot? Mercedes Moné damn sure doesn't need to be in this, especially because the women's world champion is not even in this. Chris Statlander's getting ready for a match. Why is Mercedes in this? It's just... the more that everybody gets mad at me for talking consistently about it, but the more that this keeps getting so brazenly in front of my eyes, I have to call it out. This is just nonsense. So I've got to call it out. This is a sham of a tournament, and they'll probably prove me wrong because they're going to probably see the outrage online from all of this. But even then, does it really matter? They shouldn't have been in the tournament to begin with. You shouldn't have even had this idea presented at that point to begin with. So that's my thoughts on this. There's some interesting stuff from Devon Dudley that I need to talk about. And it leads into my point of just about AEW is just so broken creatively and broken as an organization. So we'll talk about that here later on the channel. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys. Bye-bye.